Once again, this is In the Clutch, and I am your host, Draft Raw. And in this video, we're going to do the first part of a two-part series for the 2021 NFL Draft Review. So without further ado, let's just get straight into it. With the very first pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars selected the consensus quarterback from Clemson, Trevor Lawrence. Now, we all knew that Trevor was going to be the pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Consensusly, in the media, he has been the number one quarterback, the number one player, the number one prospect, whatever you want to say. They compare him to Peyton Manning and the Andrew Lucks of the world, saying that he's a generational type of talent. Now, in this draft, and when I went through this process, I didn't think that he was the number one quarterback, but I definitely did think that he was one of the better prospects, not just quarterback, but one of the better prospects in this draft. He's got a strong arm. He's got great pocket awareness. He's got great accuracy. He's got pretty much all the tools that you look for in a quarterback coming into the NFL. And with the very next pick, the New York Jets decided to select who I thought was the number one quarterback in this draft, and that is Zach Wilson from BYU. Zach also shows all of the tools that you see from Trevor Lawrence, the strong arm, the pocket awareness, the accuracy, everything that you look for in a quarterback. And then the thing that really puts him over the top is his athleticism is greater than Trevor Lawrence's, actually. It's even bigger than his. It's a little weird to see from a guy like him. He's kind of a short guy, and you know, he doesn't really have the type of look that you look for in a quarterback, but his athleticism is just off the charts. And the way that he can move in and out the pocket, avoid sacks, avoid pressure, and be able to still, on being off balance, being able to throw the ball down the field is just absolutely mesmerizing. And the reason why I felt as though he was the best quarterback in this draft. Now, moving along, a surprise happened. Now, we already knew about the trade that the 49ers went through where they traded up to the third pick. And we already knew that they was probably going to select a quarterback. Now, the rumor had it is that it was going to be Mac Jones from Alabama. But then rumors started to swirl a little around that it was going to be Trey Lance, quarterback from North Dakota State. As we went into the draft, the 49ers selected Trey Lance, North Dakota State quarterback. Now, Trey is a project player. Trey, he does have athleticism. He does have the strong arm. His accuracy is a little bit but because the 49ers do have a set veteran quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo that's going to be ahead of him, somebody like Trey Lance will be able to sit behind him for a whole year and pretty much learn the game, get used to the speed of the game. And that should be very beneficial for a guy like Trey Lance, who pretty much has a lot of tools that you look for in a quarterback in terms of the athleticism and the strong arm. Now, going into the next pick, the Atlanta Falcons, who was rumored to possibly trade down, decided to stay at the place that they were at, and they selected Kyle Pitts, tight end from Florida. Now, Kyle was pretty much looked at as the best player in this draft that wasn't a quarterback. He was a guy that, even though he is a tight end, he kind of has the look and the speed and the quickness of a wide receiver. One of the most athletic guys you're going to see. You don't really see the guys like him that's 6'6", 250 pounds and runs a 4.4, which is pretty low 40 time. This is a guy that, brings more than just being what a regular tight end is. He is an offensive playmaker and a big-time offensive weapon that he's going to be for the Atlanta Falcons. Now, with the very next pick, another offensive weapon was chosen, and that is wide receiver from LSU, Ja'Marr Chase. The Bengals decided to not go with Penei Sewell, a guy that can protect Joe Burrow. They decided to give Joe Burrow another weapon. Now, this is a guy that Joe Burrow actually played with at LSU in college last year. Ja'Marr Chase is a player that decided to opt out of the 2020 season and said that, you know what, I'm a top pick. I'm still one of the top guys. My 2019 tape pretty much speak volumes of what type of player I am. And it pretty much kind of paid off. When you're selected in the top 5 and you didn't even play the year before, that pretty much says what type of player you are. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, so he already had all the accolades that you want. And the Bengals pretty much just, like I said, got another weapon for Joe Burrow to have. And they should pretty much have a formidable offense that should be great for years to come. After that, with the 6th pick, the Miami Dolphins decided to select Jalen Waddle, another offensive weapon, but wide receiver from Alabama. Jalen has so much speed and explosiveness that it's hard to even explain. When you see this guy even play, I mean, he's running past guys, he's juking guys. The agility that this player actually has. He knows how to run routes. He knows how to catch the football. He knows how to get down the football field. He is, like I said, is another offensive playmaker. The Dolphins decided to do pretty much the same thing the Bengals did. They took a player that their quarterback played with in college the year before and decided to draft him. Now, I personally had him as the 2nd best receiver in this draft class, right behind Jamar Chase. Other people had him as the 3rd best. But I would just say this. I think that this guy is a great pick for the Miami Dolphins and another offensive weapon that should be formidable for years to come with him and Tua Tagovailoa. With the very next pick, it was the Detroit Lions on the board. And with their pick, it was a little bit of a surprise, something that I didn't expect. I expected them to possibly go defense. They decided to go offense. And when they went offense, I was expecting, well, maybe another offensive weapon, right? You know, just keep with the whole trend that's kind of going right now with the tight end and the 2 receivers, offensive weapon, right? No, they decided to go offensive line and select possibly the best left tackle in this draft, and that is Penei Sewell from Oregon. Penei Sewell brings the athleticism that you want from the position. He brings the length. He brings the quick feet. He brings pretty much all the things that you want from a left tackle that came out of college into the NFL. He's got the strength, he's got the quickness, he's got pretty much, like I said, everything that you look for. There's really not a lot of negatives to actually say about him as a player. Like I said, it was a surprise for the Detroit Lions, but they are getting a good player. The question would be, where will they play him at? Will he be their left tackle, where they already have a guy in Taylor Decker who is their left tackle? Will he make the switch to right tackle and be a bookend with Taylor Decker? Or will they have him go into playing left guard to play next to Taylor Decker and be an interior offensive lineman? We'll see, but I don't know what they're going to do, but we'll see when it happens. With the very next pick, the 8th pick overall, the Carolina Panthers, another surprise, they selected cornerback from South Carolina, J.C. Horn. Why was it a surprise? Because last year, they spent every single pick they had on defense. So a lot of people thought that maybe this year they were going offense. And then where a quarterback like Justin Fields dropping in the draft, you would think that they would actually pull the trigger on Justin. They decided not to go that route, and they decided to go the defensive route and getting another corner for their formidable defense. Their defense is actually pretty good already, but now they add who I thought was the best corner in this draft because of his straight up man-to-man skills and his dog mentality and how chip he is as a player. They adding a guy that will pretty much give their defense an extra edge, that extra edge that you really need, especially from the secondary. A guy that loves to tackle, loves to be physical, and can also get his hands on the football. And then with the very next pick, a little trend happened where another cornerback went off the board, and that is the Denver Broncos decided to select Patrick Surtain Jr., cornerback from Alabama. Now, I talked about Patrick before. Patrick was my pretty much number 2 corner and kind of number 3 corner in this draft. After the injury to Caleb Farley, I kind of pushed him up to number 2. And the biggest thing about Patrick Surtain is that he is the most versatile defensive back / cornerback in this draft. You can play him in any type of scheme, whether it's a man scheme, a zone scheme, a press scheme, whatever scheme that you're actually looking for, he can play in any type of scheme, which was the reason why actually a lot of people did have him as the number one corner. And then plus, probably because of his name, his father actually played cornerback in the NFL as well. So he has the pedigree of being a good player because his father actually played the exact same position. But when I look at Patrick Surtain for the Denver Broncos, they already signed Bryce Callahan and they actually traded for Kyle Fuller. So they have two corners. But now they get a younger guy that they can bring in because you can never have enough corners. And another guy that can really take their defense, which is already pretty good, to that next level. Then with the very next pick was the first trade in the draft, and that was the Dallas Cowboys trading with the Philadelphia Eagles. Cowboys went down to pick 12. Philadelphia Eagles went up to pick 10. And in that trade, the Eagles decided to give them the third overall pick to actually move up to 2 spots. Now, with that 10th pick, the Eagles selected the guy that we thought that they were going to get, and that is wide receiver from Alabama, Devontae Smith. Now, Devontae, I'm not the biggest fan of Devontae, but I do see him as a playmaker. He did win the Heisman this year in college. So, it says something about his talent. But this is a guy that I felt as though the scheme kind of helped him out in being a great receiver and not him being a great receiver. I'm not saying that he's not. He does have route running ability. He does have solid hands. You do see the speed and the agility that you want to see from a receiver prospect. The problem is that I just felt as though a lot of times it was schemed up for him to get open and to make plays. And in my book, you need to be a player that make plays yourself, not scheme to get open and be able to be a playmaker. Now, with the very next pick, it ended up being another trade. And the New York Giants, for the first time ever, well, at least for the GM Dave Gettleman, he actually traded his pick, and he trades down with the Chicago Bears. So in that trade, the Giants went from 11 to 20. Chicago moves up from 20 to 11. The Bears ended up giving up a 5th round pick this year, and then a 1st round pick and a 4th round pick next year just to move up. The Giants pretty much all they did was just to give up their pick. They didn't give them no extra picks. So with the Bears moving up in the draft, they decided to select falling quarterback Justin Fields. Now, this was one of the more exciting moments in the draft. Anytime a quarterback starts to slip in the draft and somebody trades up to go get him, people get up in their seats because they're thinking like, this is a guy that could be a franchise-changing type of player for a team, especially at the quarterback position. Now, Justin Fields, I wasn't so enamored by him, but I do see the traits of him as a good quarterback and where he can bring that into the NFL. Another guy that's athletic, that's ad nauseum. I keep saying athleticism, but there's a lot of athletic quarterbacks in this draft who has a strong arm. A lot of times they question his mind makeup, I guess you could say mental makeup, where they question, was he reading the defense correctly? Was he going through all his reads? I would just say this. I think that he just played within the scheme of Ohio State. And when you really watch the tape, sometimes you can see him going through his progressions and being able to hit the right receiver, which is a big thing for him because when people start to question your mental makeup and, are you smart enough to play this position, like what happened, he drops in the draft. But a lot of times when that happens in the draft, which is lucky for Bears fans, is that sometimes those guys that get doubted end up being the better players than the ones that were drafted ahead of them. So maybe this is a possibility that the Bears done got themselves finally a franchise quarterback. Now with the next pick, the Cowboys, who I already said had traded down, decided to select Micah Parsons, linebacker from Penn State. Now, here's the thing with Micah. Micah was a guy that at the beginning of the draft season I was big on. And then as I watched more tape, I kind of pulled away from him because there were some things I didn't like about him. What I can say about Micah is that he is honestly one of the most intriguing prospects, especially at the linebacker position. The athleticism, another guy whose athleticism is off the charts. You don't see guys like him much. He's a 6'4", 250-pound guy that ran a 4.3. I mean, what else can you say? He shows that he can shoot gaps. He can take on blocks. He shows that he's a solid tackler. The thing that you kind of question is, can he cover tight ends and running backs out of the backfield? He does have the athleticism to do it, but you question if he can do it because he didn't show much at Penn State. But what the Cowboys are getting is a guy that you know can stop the run, and that is something that they had trouble with last year in the 2020 season. With the next pick after that, the Los Angeles Chargers was on the clock, and they decided to select a guy that was been mocked to ad nauseum plenty of times, and that is Rashawn Slater, left tackle from Northwestern. Honestly, I don't have to even go deep into this pick. I think it's a good pick. He was definitely one of the better tackles in this draft. I did not have him as the top tackle like I had Penei Sewell, who went to the Lions, but he was definitely number 2. If you've seen the tape that a lot of people, they always talk about, was him going against number 2 overall pick of last year, Chase Young, who's one of the best defensive prospects that you'll see. And what we saw in his rookie season, where he won Defensive Rookie of the Year, Rashawn Slater shut him down. And he was pretty much the only tackle to shut him down in college. Chase Young was just constantly getting after the quarterback, getting the sacks, disrupting the play, whether it was the run or pass, it didn't matter. Rashawn Slater is the only guy that shut him down, and it was very impressive tape for a guy that's from a school that's not really that highly regarded of. So to see what he did to a guy like Chase Young was absolutely amazing. And this is I think is a great pick for the Los Angeles Chargers that get a blindside protector for Justin Herbert. With the very next pick was another trade, another big trade, and that is the Vikings trading the number 14 overall pick to the New York Jets. The Jets jumping ahead of the Patriots, who was their, rival. Well, anyway, in that trade, the Vikings were able to obviously trade down to pick 23, and they were able to get 2 third-round picks. The Jets traded up to go to pick 14, and they also received a 4th-round pick of this year. So they didn't just give up a lot of stuff. They actually did get something in return as well. And with that pick, the New York Jets decided to select Elijah Vera-Tucker, who they consider a guard from USC. Now, I consider Elijah Vera-Tucker as a tackle, and there's a reason why I consider him a tackle. He has the feet to play the tackle position, and that's all you pretty much need. The length you kind of need, but if you have the feet to do it and you have the strength to do it, then you should be all right in playing the tackle position. But I believe that they're going to use him at the possibly left guard position to put him right next to their 1st-round pick of last year, Mekhi Becton. So early in this draft, they decided to select Zach Wilson, quarterback, and now they're giving him protection where they're taking Elijah Vera-Tucker. And like I said, I thought Elijah Vera-Tucker was definitely one of the best players in this draft, at least best offensive lineman in this draft. And they, like I said, traded ahead of their rival Patriots because I believe they thought the Patriots may take a guy like Elijah Vera-Tucker because they lost Joe Thuney in free agency this year. But like I said, I think this is an excellent pick for the New York Jets, and he should be a very formidable guard for years to come. With the very next pick, the New England Patriots selected quarterback Mac Jones from Alabama. I'm not the biggest fan of Mac Jones, but I do think of him as a solid player. The New England Patriots did need a quarterback. They have Cam Newton, who hasn't been good. He wasn't good last year. He wasn't good the year before. And I don't think much of him. I just think of him as a stopgap quarterback. Selecting a guy like Mac Jones secures a future. Who's to say if he does or does not become a great quarterback in this league, or just even a good solid quarterback in this league? But I can sit here and say this, that they chose a guy that they needed to pick in a position that they needed to grab. And with the very last pick we're going to talk about, the 16th pick, was the Arizona Cardinals, and they decided to select Zaven Collins, linebacker from Tulsa, one of the most intriguing linebacker prospects. He's a guy that could rush the passer. He's a guy that could drop back in coverage. His size was the big talk, being 6'5", 260, and even showed up at 270 pounds 2 weeks ago at I think a combine medical checkup. So you're looking at a guy that, it doesn't matter what weight he's at, he still shows athleticism, and he still, if you look at the tape, he shows great play. And he's a solid player for the Arizona Cardinals. The only problem I have with it is that they have a history of choosing players that, quote unquote, are kind of positionless in a way. Isaiah Simmons last year, he was a safety / linebacker. A couple of years ago, Hassan Reddick was a defensive end / linebacker. And then the year before that, it was another safety / linebacker, and Dejon Buchanan. So you're getting another guy who's kind of a linebacker / DN type of player, just another guy that can kind of fit in both situations. But I think that he is a really good player that if they actually play him as off-the-ball linebacker, where they have their other first-round pick of last year, Isaiah Simmons, they can have a very, very great tandem. Well, anyway, that was the last pick we're going to talk about in the Part 1 series. I'm going to put the Part 2 series in the description below. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.